Steve, it's that time, percentage time. It's when everybody talks about your chances of getting into the postseason. What are the chances? What are the percentages of getting in? Well, let me tell you this. There's an AFC final playoff spot available as we head into the final week of the season, and the Broncos have a 51.3% chance of getting that spot. The Dolphins, 34.2%, and down with the Cincinnati Bengals, a 14.5% of getting that final playoff spot. Broncos got to win, and they're in. Dolphins need to beat the Jets and have the Broncos lose to the Chiefs. The Bengals need to beat the Steelers on Saturday and then have the Broncos lose to the Chiefs and the Dolphins lose to the Jets for them to get in. It's a long shot, but I think we agree who's the team that we want to see play in the postseason and the team that nobody in the AFC wants to see get into the postseason. And that is
Cincinnati Bengals. Hold on, the Cincinnati Bengals offense. No one wants to
Can one unit get into the postseason?
Their defense.
I don't even think Lou wants to see their defense right now. But listen, that group with Joe Burrow playing an MVP level, and on another episode of 89, we talked about Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson playing and coexisting together. Go check that one out when we talk about the Vikings. With Cincinnati, Steve, this might be our last chance to see another one of the best duos in football in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase playing together. If they could find a way to keep both receivers in 2025 and moving forward, we'll see. It seems unlikely right now. But as a duo and with that quarterback as a receiver, Steve, like this is just a great offense to watch.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just something I want to see them keep playing football. And I almost feel like the entire NFL landscape is like, man, Joe Burrow's been through a lot of shit this year. Like, I just want to see him keep playing football.
You know, watching the Cincinnati Bengals offensively dynamic, you know, just watching how they do, how they attack. It's really creative. And let's be honest, Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is struggling. They were A-gapping, Vance Joseph did a really good job of exposing how bad this offensive line has been. But why teams don't want to see Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals offense is because Joe Burrow has he's went toe-to-toe with every one of these guys, with Patrick Mahomes, with Josh Allen, with Lamar Jackson, and now throw his name in there, Bo Nix. It's not like, you know, we're sitting here talking about Joe Burrow as if he's like this mythical creature that no one has ever seen. He's constantly putting the team on his back. I believe, though, that Jamar Chase, he doesn't really need Joe Burrow as much as Joe Burrow needs Jamar Chase.
Really?
Because Joe Burrow can throw to anybody, but the yak that Jamar Chase has and the way that Jamar Chase runs his routes, you can't plug and play with that with anyone. Jamar Chase is a unique player. He does not need this offense. This offense works together because the quarterback knows how to play football. He knows where his bread and butter. And then you have a outstanding number 2 wide receiver as T. Higgins, who benefits as well, who runs dynamic routes. And then you see Jermaine Burton. He's starting to get involved a little bit now that he's paying attention.
Mike Gesicki, Steve.
And Gesicki that's running the routes. The only thing that really I didn't like about the game, which is now all of a sudden Chase Brown, how that sprained ankle goes, what does he do? And so when you look at a little bit of this rust versus rest, if the Cincinnati Bengals get in, or they don't get in. When we look at Kansas City and how they're resting their players, you know Patrick Mahomes is not going to play. But here's what people don't understand what's going on, and some teams are doing this. By shutting down some of their players, they're given an opportunity to now look ahead for 2025 season. But also look ahead and get these guys ready for the playoffs if you're going to the playoffs. Hollywood Brown has been hurt. But one of the things that I would imagine Hollywood Brown would play a little bit more than some of the other guys because he needs to get back in a football shape. He needs to get back in the rhythm of running routes versus a defender because probably in his practice, he was wearing a red jersey, which means don't hit him, which means, hey, let him gradually get back in a football shape. I would imagine Worthy is going to play a little bit because you need to get him flowing. He's still a young guy who needs to get the timing right. The guy who will not be playing, I believe, is Pacheco. He don't have no rust. He don't have no rest because that boy go A to B. It ain't no in between with him. He in football shape. You want him, if something goes wrong, to be in the game. He's going to get hurt giving you 100 yards because he only knows how to play one speed. Pacheco speed. He goes all out, balls to the wall.
Pop speed. Yeah.
Right? So Chris Jones, he's going to get, got to get him some rest and get him healthy. I would see this is a game that possibly the Denver Broncos win the football game because they're playing Carson Wentz. What does he do? Does he go through his progressions? Does he look like Kenny Pickett where sometimes he looks great, sometimes he looks bad? So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys play that are resting, but they're really not resting. They're getting reps. They're getting just in case. We need to make sure. And so with doing that, it does lower the chances for the Cincinnati Bengals. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they're a very dangerous team. And people are really concerned about them because of what they present offensively. Now, defensively, they're in a struggle bus, and they've cut off their nose to spite their face because they refuse to pay. And because of that, they've let some acquisitions or some guys that were the foundation of their defense go, and those other teams are benefiting from it, but they're starting to get exposed defensively.
Here's the deal, people. All season long, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Only on Underdog. Pick higher or lower on your favorite player, and you can join the millions of fans winning millions this season. Sign up today using promo code UD89, and you'll get a free pick as part of your first cash entry, plus $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, promo code UD89 to cash in on every touchdown this season, only on Underdog. Steve, to Cincinnati real quick, I would say this too. You also have a head coach that was, a play or two from winning a Super Bowl a few years ago. You have Joe Burrow that is probably one of the few players that welcomes going into Arrowhead and believes he could win there because he's done it in the postseason. Yeah. I've been there. I've watched it. I think Cincinnati's one of the few teams that would not fear going into Arrowhead if they made it into the postseason. So I think that's why we both want to see Cincinnati go in there, and we love watching this offense play. And what you mentioned, and this is why it's so fascinating, resting all of your guys with the Kansas City Chiefs, they have the ability to keep that arch rival, which I do believe Cincinnati has now become the Chiefs' rival in the AFC. With the Burrow head and the Mayors going back and forth in the postseason, it almost has a feeling that there is a larger rivalry, if you spend time in Kansas City, which I was just there a couple weeks ago, between Cincinnati and Kansas City. Kansas City has the ability to rest all these guys, and Broncos win, Broncos in, you keep Cincinnati Bengals out of the postseason. And that's the interesting part with rest versus rust. And with Patrick Mahomes in the ankle, he now gets the opportunity, Steve, to rest that ankle, whether the way the games fall, 23 or 24 days to rest that ankle.
That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time. Now, you've been around the Chiefs organization. You've been in
That's trouble for Andy Reid.
With Andy Reid. Do you think Andy Reid is a pretty good coach coming off a bye week? I think he knows how to handle some extra time pretty well.
23 days? Boy,
23 days. Because they played on Christmas. They played Wednesday. So they got the extra time.
Man, 23 days of Andy Reid. You got a better chance of giving a crackhead $1,000 and hoping he don't spend it at the dope house than you do of Andy Reid not having some stuff coming out of the woodworks. That's trouble, boy. That crackhead is not saving none of that money. No. Not a penny.
And Andy Reid's got that stack of index cards that are world famous, Steve, sitting on his desk of all those plays he just draws up all the time. He's going to be pulling from the deck, middle of the deck, bottom of the deck, finding anything that's out there to go out there and mix it up. Because the other part is, and I've talked to staffs about this, about what it's like and why you have this argument between rest and rust, is if you want to rest your players, you better have impactful and deliberate practices.
Yes.
Who's really, really good at that? Running purposeful practices. Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Like, who has thrown on the pads during a bye week? Who's thrown on the pads during that week that they've had before the Super Bowl? I've covered him a bunch in the postseason. Andy's done it. So I think your approach during the rest versus the rust as a coaching staff is always important. And how can you work your players? Have they been through it before? You got a veteran group. Do you work them hard in practice? Can you have deliberate practices that can be effective? I think the Chiefs check all those boxes. Everybody may not fall into the same category on how this probably would slant towards one side or the other.
Correct.
But the Chiefs check every single box.
Yes, they do.